Welcome back to Travel Support Thursday, number 14. Is it 14?
15?
15?
I think it's 15.
Whoa. Welcome back to Travel Support Thursday, number probably 14 or 15. One
Hello.
of those two. We've done a lot of these things. We've just
There's been so many Thursdays.
So
We're going to have
many
365 Thursdays at some point, and that's going to be fun.
Yes. Travel Thursday.
This is
Travel Thursday.
I'm getting used to this.
God. The jingle continues to mystify me as to why anyone would ever want to hear it, but we keep doing it I hope you like it. I hope you like it. Please, if anyone out there doesn't like the jingle, I would love for you to tell me immediately so we can drop it as quick as possible.
Why would you stir up some drama like that? Everything's going just fine. Just fine.
Just fine.
So, Travel Thursday, we are in a new location. Surprise. We are no longer in Vietnam.
Yep.
Sad.
We just finished up that trip, and God, what an experience that was.
It was really
incredible. We're going to talk
incredible.
about that a little bit in this episode.
We just made it to Tokyo, one of our favorite cities ever. You know, what are we doing in Tokyo? We're sitting back, relaxing.
We're chilling, son.
Shooting some
b-ball
after school.
Shooting some b-ball outside of the school when a couple of
guys. They were up to no good.
They started making trouble in my neighborhood. I got in one little fight and my mom got scared.
She said you're coming to Tokyo, Japan before you head home for the holidays.
That's exactly what she said.
We're here for a little bit, catching up on some work, editing, and of course, relaxing. Our hotel has a Sento or a public bath, so we are maximizing that time. So today we're going to talk about our awesome time that we had in Vietnam. There's just truly no place like it, I think. We're going to answer some of your questions about how to spend 2 months in Southeast Asia. Yeah. And the burning question of travel burnout. Does it happen to us? How do we deal with it? Yeah, what do we do? Do we ever get bored on the road? Things like that.
And how to prevent it over like a long time. And that question's about a 1-year trip specifically, which I think is a very common amount of time to take on a trip. But we have so many thoughts about all these topics, and we created an entire itinerary for this 2 months across Southeast Asia trip, which I'm really excited about. And I do think, I don't know, if I were going to Southeast Asia for the first time for 2 months, I think this is exactly what I would do.
And yes, in case you were wondering, Josh made a spreadsheet. So let's get into it. Okay.
Yeah. So what we just did in Vietnam, we were there for about 2 weeks, and we spent a couple of days in Hanoi, and then we went to Ha Long Bay. And then we went from there to Ninh Binh, which was one of the highlights for us. Absolutely beautiful place, very backpacker focused right now. I think it's going to grow into this kind of luxury-ish resort destination if I had to track where it's headed. So I would say if you do go to Vietnam, now's the time to go to Ninh Binh for sure. From there, we took a train down for 12 hours during the day, and man, was that an experience. Way more lively than I'd ever experienced on a train.
Definitely not for rest and relaxation, I would say.
No. Not even remotely.
And definitely not one that you should take after spending, 4 or 5 hours karaokeing with friends till 2 a.m. in the morning.
Oh, my God. The wrong time to take a train for sure.
It was definitely a fun experience. That train ride gave me a glimpse into, just how a lot of local people travel. It was such a fascinating, long journey.
Yeah. So we took the train all the way down to Hue, where we got to experience all the local culture, delicious food, and all of the local scams, of which there are many. And then from there to Da Nang, which was very built up.
Very beachy.
It felt almost like a Cancun sort of feel.
Unfortunately for Da Nang, we were only there for a day, so I feel like we didn't really get to see the other parts of Da Nang. We were there specifically on the beach in the resorty parts. Yeah.
Got to spend only 36 hours there or whatever.
Part of it was food poisoning
too.
Food
poisoning as well. So, that did happen.
Yeah. And then after that was pretty much it. We flew into Saigon. We had a day and a half there and rounded the trip out with an incredibly hectic and overwhelming big city. 3 words, how would you sum up our trip in Vietnam? 3 words. Or just how would you sum up Vietnam in 3 words?
I would say...
That's already 3 words.
The first word that comes to mind is overwhelming, because that's the first thing that I felt as soon as we landed and got into Hanoi. It was just kind of madness, especially considering like where we had come from right before that. There was a big juxtaposition in energy and kind of, it just kind of felt like also crossing the street was a very dangerous thing to do, and that there were motorbikes everywhere, and it was so loud, and so like it was just overwhelming in every aspect, not just in the craziness of it, but also in how beautiful it was, and
the food,
and
how much variety. Like
yes.
Every stall sold every single Vietnamese. I mean, we spent 2 weeks there, and we didn't get to try everything that we wanted to try.
No, I still want to try more Vietnamese food. So I think overwhelming is for sure my first word.
Okay.
What do you think of word number 2?
Oh, there's so much wrapped up into this word, and I don't know. Can I cuss on this channel?
Yeah. Let it fly.
The first word that comes to mind is badass. Like every single human being, I think, that we interacted with, that we encountered, every like the history of Vietnam, everything that I don't know. That's how I sum it. That's how I sum it up. Every single person there is so resourceful and strong and
tough.
Like physically, right? Like there are women just carrying loads and loads of fruit baskets everywhere. They're rolling these gigantic carts up a freaking hill, and then there was a woman rowing 4 of us in a boat like hours at a time, and that's just like one part of it. But then there's also all the people with all their side hustles, all their businesses, and just to know everything that the people of Vietnam have been through as a country, and to come out just like moving on, keep going. They're so resourceful. They're so badass. I have so many feelings about it, but that is like one of the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, that's true. Just like a totally indomitable spirit is what we saw in every aspect of life.
Just using every single resource available to them to make do. Like we would meet so many people like running street food stalls, for example, and then they'd just like be listening to English lessons on the side, or they'd have papers, like they wrapped our banh mi sandwiches in English lesson papers. And I just like, I don't know, the amount of creativity and resourcefulness that goes into living in Vietnam is just incredible. Incredible to me, inspiring.
And I think that leads pretty well into my third word, which is growing. And I think that that's what's happening everywhere that we saw. Stuff is being built. Infrastructure is being fixed up or made better or built entirely anew. Brand new internet going all across the country. There is new train lines being developed. There are buses that go everywhere. There are huge skyscrapers being built. There's
cable cars that just like are serving commuters. Like, it's just such an incredible country. I mean, there's a part of me that wishes we went 10 years ago, 5 years ago, because it was incredibly busy when we went in all of the bigger cities like Hanoi, Saigon, Hoi An. They were very, very popular cities, but like you can already tell that Vietnam is gearing up for like mass tourism.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Vietnam will be like in 5 to 6 years. I kind of wish we had also seen it 5 to 6 years ago, because it definitely was busier than I anticipated it would be. Yeah. But I think the thing that I loved about traveling through the country was, even though we were hitting up a lot of the big cities, popular, tourist spots that you go on when you go to a country for the first time, there were always small little gems that were to be discovered, if you just didn't look up things. Like, I think almost invariably the best restaurants that we ever ate at were the ones that were not on Anthony Bourdain's list.
Didn't have like 5,000 Google reviews.
Yeah, wasn't on the Michelin star list. The ones that we like just didn't think to try, or I think there is a lesson in this for us too. And I think there's a tendency that we have whenever we're going to a new place to like want to find the best possible experience. Yeah. To want to find the thing that makes us feel the most safe, that helps us avoid food poisoning, which funnily enough, we don't even know what caused it, because there was not a situation that we felt like warranted it. Yeah, it just like happened. Right. Could have been a culmination of everything anyway. But I think
it was probably the karaoke bus. Probably...
Just you got sick. Yeah. 2 days later. Yeah, it was just one of those things where like I felt like The less that we planned and the more that we just kind of, like we talked about before, let the universe surprise you a little bit. We found some of the best experiences. Like the boat that we took to Katba or to Halong Bay was not one of the most popular. I think there were only 20 reviews of it.
Yeah.
And it was our favorite experience ever. We met some really cool people along the
highlight
way.
of the whole trip for me, along with the karaoke bus, there were a lot of highlights, but that for me was like, that's the thing I'll remember, is this like kind of weird, really cool boat company that we found that took us in totally different parts of Halong Bay. I was just...
Yeah, I don't know. When I think of our time in Vietnam, those experiences are what I will remember the most. The ones that we didn't plan for. We didn't predict or review the crap out of.
Yep.
It's a long one.
It's going to be a big one.
You got to settle in for this one. It's a full journey.
It's going to be a big one. Okay, let's get to the questions.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to talk about this 2 months in Southeast Asia thing.
You mean your spreadsheet?
I mean, yes.
So our first question comes from @Where'sWeddle, who asks, we have 2 months in Southeast Asia, February to March, and have little time to plan. Rewatching all of your videos for inspiration. Would love to know how you'd recommend a first-timer to Southeast Asia spend these 2 months. We're flying in and out of Bangkok with a Singapore stopover.
Nice.
We like slower travel, so ideally staying places no less than a week before moving on. Thinking Bangkok, Chiang Mai, somewhere on water in Thailand, maybe Vietnam. I don't know. They're also very worried about the heat and humidity. Understandable. Yeah. And they're also at the end of the 1-year budget, so you have to keep it affordable.
Okay. So questions like this, and this one in particular, are the ones that immediately when we discuss them cause arguments between us.
Oh, for sure.
Instantly, because we both have so many places that we love
and have opinions
in this
about,
area. We both have opinions about like which like order to do them in and how to think about them and then what to do while you're actually there and how much money to spend. But after many, many hours of disagreements back and forth between us, we have picked out, I think, the best possible Southeast Asia trip over 2 months that we would do. Like the ultimate thing that we would do, and I think definitely the thing that we would recommend to you.
So we're starting off in Bangkok, which is awesome because I feel like Bangkok is one of those cities that's just so vibrant, so awesome. And just like there's so many great hotels, there's so many great restaurants, there's so many great street food stalls, so many night markets.
Yeah.
It's a great place to get started.
You won't be bored there for 7 days, that's for sure.
No. And like if you do get a little bit tired of the city life, I think one of our favorite things to do in Bangkok is like take the ferry to any other parts of Bangkok, like not just the big city part. And then there's so many day trips that you can take from the city itself.
Yeah, and also so many cool parts of town that aren't just in that main downtown tourist area. Before we talk about where we go next after the first 7 days there, since we're doing a week at each place and we have 2 months, I'm just going to say we're going to go to like approximately 8 places. So that's the total amount of spots we're picking. Bangkok is one of them, and then we got to end it at Bangkok at the end.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking we're going to want to do 2 things, which is to not do more Thailand right away. And since you're flying in and out of Bangkok, right? So that means we're going to do no more Thailand after Bangkok until the very end, because you have to be back there anyway to finish up the trip, right?
Yeah.
So back in Thailand, I mean, to finish up the trip. So also, since we're moving a little slower, right? I would say we'd want to take the time to oscillate between like 2 extremes. Bangkok's crazy busy. You're moving at light speed every single day, and then probably do up next something more relaxed, more beachy, maybe more just like a slower pace of life, smaller, more than likely.
So this is funny because I feel like this is one part where we sometimes get into little tiffs about, because like I agree. I think that makes sense, and it's exciting to go from an exciting place to a more relaxing place. But I'm like, but what makes the most sense? What's the most cheap flight that I can get, or the train? What's the closest?
Yeah, I mean, you could just book this entire thing based on like where's the next cheapest AirAsia flight out to, and then just take that. But I think that over that long of a period of time, and this kind of leads into that next question, is that like you don't want to get burned out by just doing too much of like intense large city stuff.
Yeah.
I think. And I feel like we've had this happen to us where we did like a Singapore and then a Bangkok and then a Hanoi. All 3 like very busy. We just got done with that and we were exhausted halfway through it. And
we were just like, oh, no more cars,
no,
please.
yes, I just don't want to hear a motorbike for 1 minute, please.
No humans in my personal space, please.
So I think from that perspective, I feel like, and this is where we came to eventually, is that it's time to head somewhere a little quieter,
more
somewhere
chill.
a little So from Bangkok, we thought it would be great to fly southwest into Malaysia, city called Penang.
Yeah.
And I think this has the best street food anywhere on planet Earth. Penang, Malaysia does. And it also has this giant wooden Buddha at the top of a hill. It's a great place to rent a motorbike and kind of fly around everywhere. But then after 3 nights there, take the boat from there up to Langkawi, beachy, beautiful island destination.
Also Jersh's favorite place
My favorite place on planet Earth. I love Langkawi. There's so much exploration, a little bit of adventure there. It can be very quiet in some places. And
you can also ball out of control and stay on a beach resort too.
Yes.
I mean, there is a lot for everybody in Langkawi.
Also, if you're like in this far and you're wondering like how much does all this cost, I put together a quick budget spreadsheet for this entire thing that laid out how much all of it costs. So like the TLDR of that is that this entire 2 months is like $6,500 for 2 people for everything that I'm about to say. But the breakdown of it and the details of it are in the description below in the link down there.
Spreadsheets.
Yep. Okay. So moving on, after we go from Bangkok to Penang to Langkawi, I think the next logical spot is Singapore for 7 days.
Which may or may not work because it sounded like you had a stop in Singapore at some point, maybe on the way to Bangkok or out of Bangkok. But
Yeah.
I think Singapore, 1 week is definitely plenty of time to see Singapore. It might be
Maybe
a
even
little
borderline
bit
too much.
hectic.
Yeah.
Like we when we go, I think we spend like 4 or 5 days, and I feel like that's a good amount. So you can decide, if that's something that's a little bit too long. There are day trips that you can take out there. In Singapore too, there are a couple of ferries that you can take out to some of the beaches as well that are way more relaxed, super chill, and not a lot there. I mean, in fact, I think we had to pack a picnic to one of the beaches because there was just nothing. So
yeah. But I mean, you for sure, like, you won't be bored in Singapore
No.
over 7 days. You'll have plenty of stuff to do.
Yes.
It just depends on how long you can put up with all the heat and humidity that you're going
Yeah.
to deal with there.
I mean, I think the good news about Singapore too is there are tons and tons of malls
Yeah.
scattered throughout. So like you can go and take a quick break into the mall, have some delicious food at their food courts, have a beer or whatnot, and then go back out into the world. And there's so much nighttime activity.
Yes. Singapore wrapped up, then I think it is time to head to Vietnam. And I think between those two places, since you said that you're worried about the humidity and the heat and the kind of craziness of it all, I think Hanoi and then Ha Long Bay
And Ninh
Bin would be like your perfect area. They're all kind of right in the same rough area. They're all a couple of hours bus ride away from each other.
I look back on our trip and northern Vietnam was, I think, my favorite part of the entire trip. Granted, we didn't spend a ton of time in southern Vietnam, but I think just like the lushness and the greenery and the history there's something incredible about that area. And the weather at that time really helped.
For sure. 3-4 nights in Hanoi, probably 3 nights in Hanoi would be plenty. And then off to Ha Long Bay for an overnight cruise, and then down to Ninh Bin for like 2 more nights. Take a bus back up to Hanoi and fly out to our next destination, which is Hong Kong.
Would you put Hong Kong on that list?
I would definitely put Hong Kong on that list.
No.
It's
See, this
so
is where we
great.
disagree.
There's so much fun stuff to do
I mean,
there.
Hong Kong is really cool, but I don't know that I would stay a whole week there.
Yeah, definitely, especially with all the
Okay.
day trips you
So
can do to
this is
islands.
like our
Yeah.
first. I mean, we've been debating about this for a while. I think my swap for Hong Kong would be Indonesia.
I see. I just like Bali. You know, like, but why? Long
But does
it
Hong
takes
Kong
to get
even
anywhere.
count as Southeast Asia?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? Where is it?
But I do see your point. Like, you might be out there thinking like, hey, when are they going to put Bali in there? Bali's a nice, relaxing, islandy destination. But last time we were there, we went to Ubud, and that was amazing. Seminyak, Canggu area felt
just so busy.
Felt really weird and super busy.
I mean, from what we understand, it's changed a lot. I liked Hong Kong, don't get me wrong. I just don't know that I would spend a whole week there.
I think I would. I think there's a lot to do. And I think especially after like the first 2 2.5 days of doing all the touristy stuff downtown, when you start like expanding further out into the further reaches of Hong Kong is where I think it gets really good. Like when we went and did that awesome boat trip to that island, that I think was my favorite day in all of Hong Kong. And there's like a lot more of that to be done.
That was our third day.
Sure. Yeah. So.
Okay. Well, so my pitch would be like, if we weren't doing Hong Kong, I think I'd go somewhere else like Indonesia. Bali, I think might still be on that list. I mean, while certain parts of Bali were very, very busy, I don't know. I would see other parts of Bali. I would go to other parts of Indonesia. There's incredible nature, incredible temples around the entire country. Just think it's a completely different experience.
Yeah.
I also think one of the things that I found most fascinating about Indonesia was just like the differences between the different islands, right? Bali being one of them, the most popular and common one. And then the other islands like Java, even though it might not be a place that's like the most familiar to Westerners, I think it's an incredible and interesting place to visit.
See, Heather, look at what you did to us. Look at what you've done. This was like our past 4 hours. Was honestly just this exact same thing, but with all these destinations.
Yeah, when you added Hong Kong, I was like, huh?
You're right,
okay, so after that.
Okay, so after Hong Kong, right, I think the next spot, and this is a little bit of a curveball. I think we would recommend that you go to Okinawa from there.
We?
See, every time we've literally talked about this and she's still disagreeing. She's still fighting this one. But
also, does that count as Southeast Asia?
I don't know, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close, and it makes sense with the next place that we're going after that. But I think Okinawa will be like the perfect spot to be able to get like a taste of Japan. It's pretty affordable. It's pretty cheap to get to from Hong Kong, and it's like a very relaxing, awesome island destination with a bunch of little island hopping to do around it after Hong Kong.
I think, Heather, we need to know if you've been to Japan already.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you did say Southeast Asia, and Okinawa
is not Southeast Asia. See, what are the rules?
It's the closest to the Southeast Asia that Japan gets.
We did add on the list Taiwan.
Yeah.
I mean, we're biased, but
it's just an awesome place to go. It's just so much good stuff.
And it's one of those places that I think is super underrated because I don't think people think about visiting Taiwan. But I think it has incredible street food, incredible history, incredible nature. Like, I mean, you can visit Taipei, the biggest city, which is really cool, really, really metropolitan, easy to get around, but then like go 20 minutes, 30 minutes by train and be at like a beach or a mountain town.
Yes.
It's so cool. It's so accessible, so affordable, a bit humid, depending on the time of year.
But this time of year is great. It's like high of 70, low of like 55 or something. So
I mean, I find myself thinking like, wow, why didn't we go more often as a kid?
I think after that, it's time to head back to Thailand. So then we figured it'd probably be best to go to Koh Samui.
Yeah.
For this like beautiful beachy destination. You can ride a motorbike around it. It's a little bit more relaxed pace of life. And you also have Koh Phangan and Koh Tao right next door. Koh Tao, if you're into scuba diving,
great place.
Totally go there. I think that's also kind of at the cusp of whale shark season there. So it could be a very interesting time to go.
I would also like to say this is also a part where we may have argued a little bit. Like, I don't mean to be argumentative here or debate, but there's just like one part of me that needs to like smedge. I know we don't have enough time in this world is what we're learning. We don't have enough time. I loved Koh Samui and all the other islands, Koh Phi Phi, but I think like Chiang Mai, you can't go to Thailand and miss Chiang Mai.
I would say you can't go to Thailand and miss Koh Samui. You know, it's like such a different side than Bangkok.
Chiang Mai is so. I felt like it was such a special place because it's got the old town, it's got the mountains. You could home base in Chiang Mai like we did, and then like take trips up to Chiang Dao, to Pai, to all these incredible mountain, beautiful places.
I think you wouldn't be making a mistake with either of them.
Yeah,
you know, like you wouldn't be doing it wrong with either of them. I think the nice way to end like a 2-month-long trip in Southeast Asia is on a beach with a motorbike.
You don't even like beaches.
Kind of, yeah. I just like to look at them. I don't like to be on them. There's nothing to do on the beach. You know, you just like, it's just there and it's sandy and hot and there's nowhere to hide from the sun. It's nice to look at. It's nice to look at.
Don't you want to interact with things?
I like going for a swim, but then coming back in. But then if I stay out in the sun for more than 10 minutes, I'm just immediately burned.
Like a lobster.
Yeah.
So that's another vote for Chiang Mai.
That's true. That is true. Except for that'll be right around the end of burning season.
Oh, that's true.
So it should be, well, maybe everything will be clear up by the time that you're there, which is almost April or beginning of April. Okay, anyway.
Those are our thoughts.
After that, take the next flight back to Bangkok and then fly out to wherever you're going to next. It sounds like this is maybe the end of your trip. So
that's incredible.
That's
though,
awesome
guys.
and crazy and
A
also
whole
kind of a sad
year.
moment to
I
finish
know.
up a trip like that. But all right, and that's 2 months. So in total, that was like $6,500 for two people all in to do that.
You can find the spreadsheet in our video description if you think it will be helpful. Feel free to take a look.
Yeah. I think if you're hearing that and that's like way too much money, I would probably cut out Singapore as that was the most expensive out of it. There's just no hotels during that time of year for less than $100
And
a day.
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong was also kind of expensive as well, and I think the flight from Taipei to Koh Samui was kind of expensive.
Sure. And let us know what you guys end up deciding and
Yes.
doing, because we'd love to hear where you end up. If it's Hong Kong or Chiang Mai.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Okay, but I think that this question kind of perfectly leads into the next one,
Yeah.
which is talking about a one-year trip and avoiding travel burnout. What was this
So,
one about?
yeah, our next question comes from Samantha Hall 7180, who asks some really good question and told us that they're working on a 1-year sabbatical travel plan, but they're worried about getting travel burnout or feeling a lack of purpose while traveling. Have you ever felt like that on your long trips? And what do you think of having a home base versus long-term travel? We've played with the idea of doing a month-to-month, month-on, month-off travel where we do 1 month trip and then come back and work for a month, but don't want to miss out on the full backpacker experience either.
Ooh, yes.
We hear all of this and feel it so much.
Have we dealt with travel burnout? Of course.
Definitely.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Like, yeah. And it comes in like clockwork. You know, like every 2 to 3 months, you just kind of like look at each other and you're like, what are we doing out here?
I miss
Like,
our
I'm
home.
just tired.
I miss our cat.
We spent the past 2 days just watching Netflix inside and we're in Tokyo and I don't know why we're here and what we're doing this all for. And you start taking things for granted that should never be taken for granted.
Well, and you just start to, and maybe this is like, right? We have to say all of this is a luxury that we even get to do any of this, right? It's such a privilege that we even get to travel and then get to go on a whole year trip. And I think therein lies the issue though, is like sometimes, no matter what you're doing, travel or not, it becomes normal. The thing that used to be a luxury becomes normal. The thing that you used to look forward to becomes normal. So you just start to take it for granted. I don't know if it, I think it's like, did you ever feel like when you started your first job, you missed being in school?
Oh, no, but I hated school.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I
hated school.
Like there were times when I missed like summer break or I missed winter break or I missed studying really hard for an exam and then being done with it and never having to think about that class again. There was something about that like built-in schedule that I could look forward to something. And then when I started my 9 to 5, it was great to start working and making a real salary, but then I started to miss. I just think that eventually the more you do something and the more normal it becomes, you start to like take it for granted. So I almost feel like it's better to have, like, we loved full-time traveling. I wouldn't change our 1-year travel experience at all because I feel like I learned so much, not just about the world and you and myself, but just like what things I enjoyed about life and what parts of our lives that we wanted to like keep holding on to and keep, which is why we went from like full-time travel to now home base and travel. But I think we had to go through that to get there.
Yeah, I mean, you're about to embark on ostensibly a brand new life for a little while, right? Like a full-on change from whatever you were doing before to a fully new thing. And I think to expect yourselves to not only be good at it at first, but also to be able to just keep at it at a super hard pace
Every
over a
single
long
day.
period of time is an unreasonable expectation.
Yeah.
And I've fallen into this trap before. And I think that the key to it, at least that I've found over time, is to just build in breaks and to have grace for yourself, to just stop for a little while and just do normal life stuff. Whatever you normally do at home, just like build in time for a week to do that. But what I would really caution against is heading home. I think for me, there were a bunch of times, especially on my first trip when I was solo and I was doing it by myself, that I just wanted to go home.
Yeah.
That I just wanted to quit. But I'm so glad that I didn't. I damn near died on that first trip. Was homesick for like 40% of it. It was rough. But the only things that got me out of that were just the thought of that if I went back, I would just be giving up on this thing that I'd tried so hard to get. Like I'd spent years saving up the money just to be able to afford this 1 year sabbatical that I was doing. I had quit a job. I had like said goodbye to all my friends and family for a little while. I had set aside this time in my life to do a thing for the first time in my entire life that was just for me. And that thought of just giving that up because I was feeling sad for a little while or because I was feeling homesick to quit all of it was just impossible for me. There was no way that was going to be the end of that trip.
Yeah, I think a lot of it does come back to like the reasons, I guess, why we travel, and that will likely change, right? Like when we started and when I think I asked you like, do you want to just take a 1 year honeymoon? I think my reasoning at the time wasn't because I was necessarily bored of my old life. Like I loved our life. I loved our friends. I loved where we were living and I loved our apartment. But I remember thinking like, there's so much in this world that I want to see.
Yeah.
10 days is never enough. 10 days a year is not enough. And there was just this feeling like, if I don't do it now, when can I? I can't like take 10 days every single year, every single paycheck, getting one more day, I can't, I can't wait. Like I want to, there's so much in this world that I want to see. And after this 1 year, I mean, I think part of how we luckily found purpose on our trip was YouTube, right? Making these videos, editing was another way that we like kind of took some breaks from the art and the practice of traveling and just like sat down and worked on something that felt larger than what we were doing.
Yeah, built something.
So that helped, I think, definitely, having hobbies while on the road. I think some of you have asked us this, like, what are things that you do when you travel? You would play video games with your brothers. You'd set aside time on the calendar to say every time, whatever time zone we're in, we're going to find time to play video games. I would schedule in phone calls with my friends or my family back at home. I would dance, so there were a lot of different ways that we could still keep connected and take little breaks from traveling and make it feel a little bit more normal and routine.
Right.
But I think like looking back on the whole year, like I really don't know that. I mean, I think what you're to your point, you guys have been thinking about doing this 1 year versus month on, month off. It's a really good question because now like we're at the point where we're traveling, but also have a home base so we can go home. But I don't think that we would have made that choice until we knew what full-time traveling was going to look like.
Yeah, or if we didn't have our YouTube channel.
Yes, also that.
It's a lot. And I think having a home base has really helped us be able to like sustainably do this for years now, right? Like this, we're approaching year number 4 of doing fullish time travel plus YouTube at the same time.
There's a part of me that like wonders what our year would have looked like. Our actual 1 year honeymoon would have looked like had we not like done the YouTube thing. I mean, I still think a lot of it was pretty like in the beginning, it started off really easygoing. We were just like documenting our travels and editing them. And that like gave us purpose and that gave us like something to do on the side, like a hobby. as we like have done it more and more, there's a part of me that wonders, what would have that 1 year, a year of nothing would have looked like? Because I do think there's
Sounds pretty awesome.
It does.
Actually, it sounds pretty great.
And I do think there's something about working through the like sitting with the discomfort of being homesick, you know, missing home, not feeling like I have something to do or work towards. I think we're so used to getting stimulation from every part of our lives, travel, social media, you know, everything, that sometimes there's something special also just about sitting in the nothingness.
Yeah, like when I think back about the Josh that left on that first trip back in 2011, the Josh that left on that first around the world trip, and then the Josh that came home after a year were two fully different people. Yeah. Two totally different human beings from when I departed to when I returned.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of that change, some of it was good and some of it was bad. You know, it was just a lot of life kind of condensed into 1 year. I think a lot of that change came directly as a result of just having to confront all of these difficulties, exactly like what you're describing, some of which were boredom, some of which were homesickness, some of which were just, I had never been alone in my own head for as many days straight as were there, and some of which was just a total lack of direction and purpose that I had to confront. And like, up until that point, I had just been kind of doing the game plan that everybody else in my life was telling me was the right thing to do. And then for the first time, I turned all that noise off and I just went out and traveled forever and just started listening almost exclusively to what was going on in here. And there was a lot more crazy going on in there than what I expected, but also a lot of like truth and a lot of extremely clear opinions and like identities about what I should be doing with the rest of my life. And I would have never heard any of those ideas had I not also like suffered through some of those very difficult alone times and some of those very difficult homesick times and wrestled with like, why am I homesick? Yeah. Why do I feel bad about this? Why do I
feel guilty?
Why am I on my dream trip but still feeling very sad? Like why? Like, how can those two things coexist? I've been fighting for this dream forever, and now that I have it, some parts of it aren't as great as I thought it would be, and some parts of it are way better than I thought it would be. And all these little
things,
moments, like, at least that's how I felt, is that had I gone home, I would have just never figured any of that out, and I would not have been able to actually, like, turn off all the other noise and just listen for the first time to what I actually wanted, to what was going on in my head. And actually confront all these little problems and all these little things that were causing around it. And I think I would have come home, instead of a very different person, I would have come home the exact same person that I left. And that was not the point of the trip for me.
Those are our, experiences and our thoughts. I mean, I would say it's just, it is completely normal to feel what you feel, traveling full time, as glamorous as it is. And as luxurious as it is, still comes with, feelings and emotions, homesickness, lack of purpose. Like there are definitely times in our travels where I think,
that's why we started this YouTube channel.
Like sometimes I miss my old job. Sometimes I miss having like lots of coworkers. I miss having breaks. I miss having lunch hour, all these different things. And so I think part of what the beauty of this, hopefully this sabbatical, is figuring out, what you guys truly enjoy and what you don't, and what kind of life, I don't know, that you want to lead. I think that really was the surprising thing that came out of our trip for me. I didn't know that. I thought we were just going to go back home and work for our old employers again. Honestly, I didn't know that that out of this 1 year trip would come a whole new lifestyle of travel, YouTube, building our own business. And I mean, I think, and then luckily in the last year, home base too.
Yep.
I definitely think it's one of those things that's not for everybody. We know people who still love traveling full time or there's some people that have a home base or just are back at their old jobs. I mean, I think there's so many different ways to experience travel. And I think that's kind of the coolest and
That's
beautiful thing about it.
That's the point of it, is to be able to turn off all the outside noise for a little while and
see
just go
how other people live.
Just do the thing that exactly you want to do. Yeah. Whatever that thing is, to be able to do that.
And I think practically speaking, I think we talked about this and kind of got off track a little bit, but I think practically speaking, helping set in structure on your right? Because it sounds so luxurious to have just a whole year of traveling, a whole year of no work, whole year of nothingness. But actually, for people like me, I love having purpose. I love having a routine. I love having structure. Mm-hmm. So there were times where we just had to say, okay, this is what our day is going to look like tomorrow. And so it helped for me to plan things in advance, to look forward to things, to have friends and family come and visit on our trip, mm-hmm. and to build in those breaks, like wake up, okay, we're going to have coffee this morning and then we're going to go sightsee, or okay, today we're going to play video games, dance hula, or, talk with our friends. Those little things definitely went a long way.
Yes. I really do hope that this was helpful in some way. I know that a lot of this is kind of like hand wavy advice, and it's not really tactical because there isn't really like one
size fits all.
Yeah, there's not like one way to be like, how do I cure homesickness? Well, it depends. What was home like, and mm-hmm. how sick are you? And like, there's
how do I avoid burnout? Like a lot of it is just like going through it and realizing like what caused it to begin with.
Understanding it. Yeah. Understanding it takes time, and getting past it. And the only way to do that is just to confront it. Why am I burned out? I don't know. I'm in another country. I should be having fun, but I feel like the whole world has been telling me that this is a place and a thing that I should be having fun doing, but I'm not. So I feel bad about that. And I feel double bad about the fact that I'm like tired on this other side of the world when I should be on this crazy adventure that Instagram has told me needs to be this nonstop fun thing from start to finish, but in reality has a whole bunch of different shades of emotions and fun, and sometimes it's not fun, and sometimes it sucks, and sometimes it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And it's like a 1-year sabbatical, I think, like you're about to do, is just this condensing of like a decade's worth of stuff happening in your life all into 1 year. Mm-hmm. And that means you're going to have a lot more ups and a lot more downs and a lot more of everything mm-hmm. that's going to happen in this year. And I think to like expect all of it to be amazing and to expect none of it to have any downsides or any burnout mm-hmm. or any like difficulties along the way is just, it's unrealistic. And I think it would be a kind of boring trip if it ended up that way anyway.
Yeah. It's definitely the thing that, we don't even show in our 3 days in X series, right? The things that go along with travel, but I think is important to talk about and is important to face. I mean, we've lost loved ones, on our trip. We've gotten sick. We've had other family members get sick, so there's a lot of things that happen in your course of travels that YouTubers don't tell you or you don't see in the highlight reel, and people think, that you should be having the time of your life. But I think more importantly, when you're traveling, is just to treat it like your normal life. Respect the feelings and respect the emotions and the feelings that come with it.
Yes, and give yourself grace and time to solve them, and don't feel like you need to keep moving if you're feeling like you just want to lie flat on your face and watch a whole Netflix series for 2 days.
Or build spreadsheets.
Okay, that is enough for this one. We have rambled on long enough about travel burnout. So please leave more questions down in the comments below if you got them. Again,
we are loving them.
That spreadsheet with all the in-depth costs and stuff is in the description below. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next Thursday.
Bye.